Hi friends, I wanted to make a quick video today and talk about a few photos that I find to be incredibly compelling and talk about why I find them to be incredibly compelling. I have my coffee, let's chat. Now these are photos that I've stumbled upon over time and I will link below to said photos. This is one that was taken in Grand Central Station and I think that there is a certain irony for a photographer that comes with shooting a scene like this. You have a scene that is inherently aesthetically pleasing on its own. And then you have a scene that has been photographed 100 billion times. And then you have a scene, in this case, which has a lot of people roaming about at all times. This can create a weird you think that it would be very easy to create a compelling photo. It can actually be quite difficult to create a truly compelling photo. It's easy to create a pretty photo, as tourists do it all the time. But to create a truly compelling photo is a different monster altogether. I think the photographer took a very thoughtful approach to this one here. You have a guy who is perfectly centered, and you have the shadow coming off of him, beautiful light hitting him, beautiful post-processing of the image, which I think has a lot to do with the blown-out nature of the floor on the ground. I also love the shadows, very filmic, intense, strong, but kind of faded at the same time. And then if you chop this photo down the middle, you would have a perfectly mirrored photo. It's a very symmetrical photo, but I would be willing to bet that the photographer had to wait around a little bit for this shot, had to be patient and diligent. That's often the name of the game. I don't know. Maybe he planted this guy because he's a phony, or maybe the guy just happened, he got very, very lucky. It was there at the right time. A lot of times this scene has a lot to do with patience and dedication. Photography is a game of patience and dedication. Next photo. This is a photo that has a lot to do with, this is a photo that is about feeling for me. This photo feels very lonely and desolate and intense, and it affects me on a visceral, emotional level. I love photography that can do this well. I can picture myself standing on top of whatever hill this photographer is standing on in a coat and slightly shivering and experiencing the scene. And this is something that seems, maybe I'm strange, but that would be quite intoxicating to me. That seems like that would be an incredible experience. Even though when it gets too cold, I get shaky and anxious and depressed. But I also think that there are a lot of wonderful aesthetic elements going on with this photo too. You have a weird chaotic town going about, which you don't see often, but there is some symmetry here, but there's a lot of chaos in the way the buildings are placed. They're kind of just all over the place. And I'm sure there are roads underneath that snow, but the snow covering the roads creates for a very, like, they just kind of threw some houses off the hill and they landed where they landed. And I find that to be interesting. There's also an interesting interplay between, Ooh, exotic. Interesting interplay between the cold tones of the snow and the warm tones of the scattered lights. And I find that to have a very aesthetically pleasing effect here. I love the background. I love how lonely and desolate the background feels. Like if you walked up on that hill, you would just see miles and miles of snow or something like that. These types of photos cause my imagination to wonder, and I love that. This is a photo that I think is a wonderful example of conquering the challenge a photographer has of taking something that is enormous in real life and making it actually feel as enormous or close to as enormous in a photo. That is actually very difficult to do. And I think the photographer did a fantastic job of creating a sense of intense scale and enormity. I think that there are a lot of elements at play here that I'm maybe still trying to figure out, but I think one of the major elements is the fact that the photographer got below the falls and pointed up at them. And I love the interplay. Ooh, exotic interplay between the red, rain cover things. That's the scientific terminology, and the blue waterfalls and the blue sky in the background. I love how they bounce off of each other in an interesting way and contrast each other in an interesting way. But I think this photo, what was so fantastic about this photo, is that the photographer was able to capture the enormity of the falls in a way that actually makes them feel as enormous as they are. Hi, wife.
Hi, husband.
Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.